Hello, folks, and welcome to Tippcast this Wednesday, a fairly rotten Wednesday, I have to say. Joined by Shane Brophy, head of sport in the Nina Guardian, and journalist and Killer One man, Damien Lawler. We'll have to go straight to Damien, Shane. Damien, what was it like?
No, Lorrha, intermediate win. We have to start with the big one.
Don't mind your intermediate. You should have been up senior anyway. Damien, we have to start with you. What was it like the other day seeing Killer One get over the line?
Absolutely unbelievable, to be honest with you. And you know, if I'm being honest about it, like at the start of the year, you're wondering where we're going. And I suppose everywhere I've gone, lads, for the last 10 years or so, people ask me where you're from, and a lot of people around Tipperary would know, obviously. But you keep hearing it over and over. Geez, you've got a great young team coming through, and you know, and we did have a great young team coming through. But as the years passed, then you kind of wonder to yourself, have we missed the boat here? And to get over the line last Sunday, and Shane Brophy knows Shane, because I've been talking to him about Killer One, say, the last decade non-stop. And it was an unbelievable feeling. Like, I mean, you're remembering loved ones that passed away. That's what you're doing straight away. And we've lost a fair few of them in Killer One over the last few years. And I know every club has and every village has. And that's the first thing that comes into mind. 37 years, lads, is a long, long time. And I was lucky enough that when I was a kid, I grew up watching heroes all around me. Gilbert Williams was a hero of mine. He was my school principal at the time as well. And just the awe and reverence you have for people like that, like to be walking into McDonagh Park on a Saturday or a Sunday and seeing Gilbert coming out covered in blood, playing half back, and even for him to salute you, and then you go back into class with him. After all the games, I used to sit down beside Eamon O'Shea in the dressing room. He was another hero of mine. Tony Shepherd, one of the greatest goalkeepers that say we've ever seen. The first thing you do with Tony, the ball would come in his direction, you'd look down the other end of the field because you knew he'd deal with it. So they're the heroes I grew up with. I remember going to the All-Ireland Club final, and I was on the team train, and I was with Lenny Gaynor, I think, at the time, and we found a £20 note in the team hotel. Now back then, that's like winning about €25,000, and I probably should have put down a deposit on a semi-D up in Drumcondra. But we won that game then as well, and I'll never forget the explosion of joy after that game, and to have All-Ireland champions in your village. And Shane Stapleton, he won it the year after, so you know the crack. But that's what I grew up on. And you know, the great thing about Killer One was then we always went back to Rowan village, Rowan parish, and kept it internally. I don't think we ever got too big for our boots. I don't think the lads ever got ahead of themselves. And you're kind of half hoping then, like, will we get through it? And you know, the years after that, from 1990 onwards, like we're very, very kind of lean in many ways. And I was doing hurleys the day we got relegated. I was on the line doing hurleys that day, for example, and we got beaten and put back to intermediate, and then to win the intermediate and go back up, then see all the young players coming through, and just all that work that has kept the club going through so many people over the last 30 years. And we've had good, bad and ugly. To get over the line last Sunday, it's one of the, apart from the obvious things like getting married and the kids in your life, and just it's right up there as one of the best days in my life. I mean, but that's no surprise to either of you. You're Shane Brophy, you had an unbelievable day on Sunday as well, and congrats to you. And Shane, you've had many fine days with both Borris and Clough Out. But I listen to your cast every week there, and you hear what people explain what it means to them. And I wonder genuinely, would I'm still only 47, 48. I wondered, would I ever see that again? You know, but we saw it last Sunday, and it was. I lost the plot anyway. I'm back to the back of the stand, and I lost the plot so nobody could see me. And I can only imagine what the people closer to the ground than I am, in those involved in grassroots there, and there's so many. I can only imagine what it means to those and the players as well.
Yeah, and like the scenes, I mean, that's the picture I took from behind, and Jerome Cahill lifting the cup, and sure, I suppose most of the parish is out there. Shane, give us your point of view. Like when that ball was lashed to the net by Keane Darcy, you knew it was game over. Then Willie Cleary had a bit of time to stand over the free, knock it over, and take it all out.
Yeah, I suppose that's the dream scenario. I was looking down at the dugout, and the high fives and the huggings were already started, and it was. I don't think it even needed the second goal to clinch it. Was I did think midway through the second half, I said Killer One are going to win this, because even though Killadangan were only maybe a puck of a ball away, yet there was just this mentality of defiance among Killarwan once they got Killadangan into a vice-like grip in the second half, and there was never any sense they were going to let it go. Like they were just relentless in what they did. Like 13-7 points in the second half was just a domination. And I suppose the thing about it was, like I was thinking at half time, Killarwan are going to have to change something here. They're going to have to use the ball better, because that's why they were behind at half time. Killadangan were just smarter in what they did. But look, Killarwan practically just did the same thing in the second half. They kept going direct, but they just wore them down. They just added a bit more urgency to their play. They hit the brakes. Like Sean McAdams really got into the game. He had a massive game. Willie Cleary, I thought he looked spent 10 minutes into the second half, yet he kept getting on the ball at right wing forward and delivering it inside. And then, of course, Keane Darcy, Lords into the game. I was delighted for Keane. Like, Keane's a brilliant finisher. But I think Keane does be hard on himself when the ball doesn't run for him or doesn't get in his hand. He tends to beat himself up, and he's his own worst enemy. But we saw, like, there's no probably better finisher. One of the best finishers in the club game in Tipperary is Keane when he gets the ball in his hand. And like I was only looking at it after on TG Carr. Like, his second goal was incredible. Like, I couldn't believe how that was a fair angle he took that shot from, and he get Barry Hogan no chance with it. Like, so, and you were even thinking at that stage, like, just stick it over the bar, 4-point lead, it's game over. But he backed himself in that position. Like, it was, and look, you have to think it was to win that championship the way they did without their best player in Craig Morgan going down midway through the championship just shows you, and effectively winning it with 16 players for the last 4 games, like reintroducing likes of Seamus Hennessy, bringing him in and out of matches. Like, we all thought in 2017 or 2019 when Borris Lee got to an All-Ireland final effectively with maybe 17 players, Killarwan have effectively done the same thing, and it just shows you sometimes you don't need the deepest opponent. Maybe you need a bit of luck with injuries and stuff, like, to keep your best players together, and they managed to get it. They managed to get the job done, which was incredible from their point of view.
Shane, I think your mic is scraping a little bit off your jumper there, so you might just keep an eye on that. But, like, who are the players that you think really stepped up, Damien, in that second half? Because, like both of you said, 13-7 in the second half. What a performance that was.
Well, yeah, I suppose start with the obvious anyway. I mean, Bill O'Mara gave an exhibition, and I think, I don't know what his plans are for next year or what Liam Carroll's plans are for him, but you see yourself there the last few weeks since he's come back from Spain, just every game he's reached unbelievable levels. I thought Sean McAdams did really well in the wing in the second half. Mark O'Neill put in a fine shift. James Cleary is a player that's really excited me this year. He's popped up himself in Austin. They're a credit now down the right flank there, and I think that James Cleary is really a guy I love watching. He seems to be able to pop into the pockets at the right time, and Conor Austin does that as well. See how raging Jack Peters was when he was taken off, and he had half a leg left, and that kind of epitomised just the work that Jack would have put in to be fit for those 2 finals. It's incredible stuff, really. Jerome was probably held better this time around, obviously, than he was the last time. And I suppose in his absence, I thought Aaron battled really well. Aaron's after coming into his own. He's a huge amount to offer as well.
Damien, your microphone is just breaking up an awful lot there, so we might just kick you off, and if you can just log back in there, because it's just okay. I'll up a small bit. Okay, yeah. So just to take it from there, like Niall O'Mara, when I saw him go down during the second half, and he was hobbling around for a couple of minutes, and then they were patching up his leg, and you saw the bandage around the hamstring and all that, you thought, there's no way Killarwan can get it done from here. But somehow he played on. God knows what they'll be like this weekend, but somehow he played on. Somehow Cian O'Kelly, who didn't do the warm-up, was able to complete the game. And obviously Jack Peters was able to play most of it. I mean, a patched-up team, and to perform like that going down the stretch was quite something.
It does, but it just shows you the mentality of what they were prepared to do to win the game. Like, they were just mentally tougher than Killadangan. Like, while Killadangan stayed plugging away in the second half, there was never any sense that they were prepared to go to the depths of what Killarwan did. Like, if you know what I mean, and that's no disrespect to Killadangan. sometimes you've just got to go to the pit of, you've got to do what Keane O'Kelly did, nearly play through the pain barrier. Like, look, he could be doing himself long-term damage by playing on an ankle injury at the moment. Like, but they were prepared to do it, and I mentioned in my analysis afterwards, even the way after the penalty save, the way Barry Hogan would challenge going back to field, like, sportsman's wise, it wasn't nice, but it just shows you that what Killerone were prepared to do. They were going to do anything that it took to win that game last weekend, whether it was playing through injuries, whether it was getting in the heads of Killadang, and look, it came through for a finish. Like, they were so dominant in that second half, physically, mentally, everywhere. Like, they were terrific. Like, so they wore Killadang down. Like, Brian Mallochty missed a couple of frees at key moments in that second half where it might have stalled Killerwane's momentum. And then I thought the substitution of Willie Connors was a seminal moment. Okay, he wasn't having a great game, but like, you were taking off one of your big leaders. I would have thought you bring Willie around the middle of the field, you get him into the game that way, rather than subbing him off. I thought that was a psychological win for Killerone midway through the second half.
Yeah, Damien, in the past, maybe Killerone would have been, considered too nice a team, or that would have been said about the team a lot. And, what Shane is describing there in terms of, like, roughing up Barry Hogan a small bit, getting stuck into, even that melee in the middle of the field where Kieran Cahill had his jersey ripped off his back. Do you think that Killerone kind of ended that talk of being too nice a team?
Yeah, I think, first of all, if my microphone keeps playing up, like, just let it roar at me and I'll take it out altogether. But they had 190 training sessions done up to last weekend. And, they started last November inside in UL. And it was the core group, and obviously the manager, Limo, Kelly and Christie and Pat Murphy and Buggy and Cronin Casey and Pat Shanahan, the core group in the backroom team, and a couple of others as well. So I'd say along the way, they've developed an unbelievable spirit as a group of players together. And, they have developed the gym down there. They appear to be much, much closer than maybe previous kind of setups were. And I think that's after standing through them. Young guys have come through then, like Mark O'Neill, really stamped his authority on that team. And, Mark O'Neill comes from a good, solid family. He brought a fair bit of steel to proceedings as well. So I think, we won in great traditional McDonagh spirit, coming from behind in a big game. All my youth was brought up looking at Killerone teams nearly coming from behind to win big games. And that's a value and a tradition that we kept going. And I just feel that probably with the sense of loss we've had in the village and the parish over the last few years, that probably galvanised people as well. I mean, there's hardly a person on that panel or setup or closely that hasn't, lost a good friend or a loved one in recent years. And that does bring everybody closer together again. But I think it's a lot of things combined. The fact that they had all the training sessions done, they were getting better with every game, I thought myself. Losing Craig was a colossal blow. We're also down Dara and Justin as well. And I'm just wondering, if we had those three in the lineup, where would we be at now? But we don't, and that's been the Killerone way. And now I'd like to see us going forward. I'd like to see Rory Grace, young Jack Mulcahy, Kieran Coffey, Ross Austin. These are the guys now that have to step up and drive that team on in the next few years. And see, even Carl Williams probably will be in the tip football setup next year, but he'll bring an athleticism to that team. That's the challenge now, because we're coming good at 15s and we're coming good at 13s, and there's a lot of work going in. The likes of Sylvie Ryan, Mark O'Leary, Cronin Casey, the Caseys, they're all involved underage again, bringing up teams. And that's the trick now, guys, is to keep us going for the next generation coming through, because we can't be waiting anything like this time again. And again, I go back to stalwarts like Carmel Daly and people like that doing so much work behind the scenes. And to see lifelong supporters on Sunday after that game to really, really just make you proud of where you come from.
Yeah, it's just incredible to think that, like, I probably would have started out reporting in 05 when that Killerone minor team won a county championship. Seamus Hennessy's, Owen Hogan's team. You thought that Ray Mallochny's, like, that was the team that was going to bring Killerone a county championship. They eventually did, but I think Fez and Owen Hogan are the only two guys that are still there. Like, there's a lot of guys have fallen away, like, and just you think that wait 17 years for that to finally do it, and they had a couple of great under-21 teams there. The Quinlans were on it too, like, and
yeah,
it just shows you just never know when a group might just gel together, and I say it pulls together, and it's like, man, just like, great credit has to go to Liam O'Kelly, the way he pulled it all together. Like, did you think, like, how he kept that team bonded, was particularly after the Dylan Quirk pass, and it was like the shell shock of that, and I've been on the field that night, and just to keep guys together and keep them focused and keep them positive, and like every game they had. So you think that rematch with Clough, if Killer lost that game, they were out of the championship. Like they were playing knockout hurling from what, mid August, early September, I think, whenever that match was played. Like then you go beat Tumivara, a traditional rival, and then maybe going in against Upperchurch, who had serious momentum behind them, and then you're going up against Killadangan, who were hot favourites in many people's eyes. Like they've had to do it the hard way.
Yeah, and from what I can see then as well, guys, Liam O'Kelly keeps looking for ways to freshen things up. He keeps looking for.
Your mic's gone funny again there, Damien. Maybe just rip out the. It's not picking up at all now at the moment. Oh, maybe it is again.
Is that any better at all, guys? I'm sorry about this. I thought it was in a good area.
Yeah, it's just a little bit raspy there at the moment. I might kick you out and log back in again, and hopefully it'll work a bit better.
It's one of those days. It's one of those days.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is live media and horrible weather. So, you just kind of have to work with it at times. I'm just going to bring up the tactics board here. We said we might as well have a little bit of a look at it. Was there any particular matchup that you thought was crucial? I mean, it was interesting that, when Jerome Cahill was being marked by Quigley and he moved out the field, Quigley followed him out as well. And I think it was David Sweeney went in full back at times or whatever. Was Ratton that really stood out to you?
I suppose mainly, the key one was probably Niall O'Meara playing at centre back for all the game last weekend. I suppose with Seamus Hennessy not starting, they probably decided we need to go back to basics, put Niall in the middle, and he just hoovered up ball after ball. Like I think Joe Gallagher went in on him. Like I don't know whether it seemed to be more by design. I like particularly with James Cleary following Paul or Sean Hayes again, that it leads me to believe that even if Hayes went in centre forward, Niall O'Meara would have probably still held that position anyway, because they just probably wanted to I suppose have that hold that middle. I mean, at least keep themselves in the game going into the second half, and like after that they really took command. Like I suppose when Cian O'Kelly went in full forward, I think for a spell too, like it was his high catch that really broke the game open, fed it off brilliantly to I think it was Jerome Cahill, and then he fed it on to Cian Darcy for the goal. I think it wasn't an overly tactical game. I thought playing Niall O'Meara at centre back for the majority of the game, all of the game was I think it was the key thing from a Killer One point of view.
Yeah, was there any particular matchups or that stood out to you, Damien? One thing I'd say is some of the key men for Killadangan didn't really get the normal foothold. The likes of Alan Flint, Ty Gallagher, Joe Gallagher. These are all very good players, but it didn't really happen for them.
Yeah, and apologies for losing reception there, guys. It's really windy and stormy here, and the 4G keeps going down to 3G. I just thought the way Bill O'Meara covered behind his even full back line at times. He was over covering the corner back positions the whole time. That gave a really, really reassuring foothold to the team. At half time, they changed tack completely, I thought. And I felt that maybe they started going through the channels a bit more rather than the big, long, direct ball that they went with the first half. Clearly, after the first county final, they felt that the high ball and the Kildangan full back line was an area that they could threaten. But in fairness to James Quigley and these guys, they dealt well with everything that was coming. I think Killer One moved tack. He played the running game. They went back to running off the shoulder, coming from deep. And I thought that they were much more economical and they were much more intelligent with their use of the ball in the second half. And it allowed, I think, at one stage I look back at our half-back line and we looked to have maybe nearly 5 players across that. But then it was allowing pockets of space for the likes of James Cleary, Conor Austin or Mark O'Neill to pop up. Pushing McAdams out to the wing then gave us a little different dimension there, a little bit of sharpness on the wing as well. And then Willie Cleary's free taking, guys. Like, I mean, I mean, it's just like a poetry in motion watching that at the moment as well. So I think all those little tactics in the second half then, and Keane Darcy made the point to us on Sunday evening that he wasn't leaving anything behind him this time around. There was maybe a little bit of criticism that he didn't go for goal in the county final with one of the points he got, and he made sure to rectify that. But like you guys, I was roaring at him near the end, put it over the bar, and of course, he has the ability to do that, you know.
Yeah, beautiful ball striker. Tell us what it was like that evening in the pubs and the homecoming and the whole lot.
Yeah, the homecoming was very short and sweet. Gilbert Williams would be the most respected figure in our club, I suppose, that held things together for so long. He went up and, of course, listed off our previous county final wins and our previous county final captains. Up at the back of a lorry, as usual, Tom Williams sung the ballad of Thomas MacDonagh, which is a lovely, lovely touch as well. The whole kind of parish seemed to gather in the street, and it was lovely for the kids to be able to see it. The guys came back from the hurling complex. That's where they went first of all. They came back up to the village. All the youngsters were able to see it then. So the team got up, and from recollection, club chairman Joe Whelan gave a talk. Liam Kelly, as manager, gave a talk. Gilbert Williams gave a talk. And Jerry Cahill gave a speech that I'll never forget anyway, for his pure humility and his groundedness. And then everybody just went into the clock in. It's Wednesday now, lads, so you can look, in fairness, we have a match coming up on Sunday, so the lads are professional about it too, and they'll want to give a right good account of McDonald's against the best team in Ireland. But look, it was sensational. I mean, even the age group I grew up with, we were in Section A underage getting hammered the whole time. Then we went back to Section B. We won a County 21 title, mainly through Brian Gaynor and Mark O'Leary. They were our main players. But just to see the lads then that you mucked around with yourself, and all my best mates are still from Killer One anyway, that just to go back and be with them. And the gas thing is, like, I've never really left Killer One, but I suppose physically I haven't lived there for the last 20 years through college and work, and I'm living up here in Ace, my family. But the great thing is you can go back home, you don't have to say anything to anybody, just pick up from where you left off. And like, I would have been, watching them all games throughout the years at all levels, so you'd be fairly well across it. And it's a pleasure to be part of it in a very small way too,
Yeah, so we want to ask you about your book, but one final question I want to ask you: how do you think this Ballygunner game is going to go on Sunday? Because they're an imperious team. Now, they haven't played since mid-September. Obviously, Killer One had to play 2 games in the last week. There's injuries, the whole lot. It's in Walsh Park. It couldn't be a tougher set of circumstances for Killer One.
Let's be honest about it. It couldn't be tougher, and we won't be favourites to win that one. And people will say, job is done now and the famine and hunger is over. But you're looking at the lads then, the likes of Seamus Hennessy, who gave 19 years playing with his knee bone on bone for a lot of that time. And you're looking at Jack Peters, who, I said to Jack, he could have walked away at any given stage, over the last few years. Then you're looking at the likes of Thomas Cleary and Willie Cleary, who are constantly down in the field, hitting balls and practicing themselves. And all these lads are doing the extra bits. And I would say Kieran Cahill, Jerry Cahill, players like that are going to be serious about driving on against Ballygunner and doing our club proud. Don't forget, we're a fiercely traditional club. We're respected all around Munster, I hope, and hopefully further afield too. We've produced a serious amount of county players to Tipperary teams over the years. And I feel now it's Wednesday, the game is on Sunday. The boys will be focused enough on going down there and doing the club proud. And that's what it's about now. They don't owe us anything. The job was done last weekend. There's no point in saying otherwise. But Killer One in the Munster Championship is a very special thing. And you want to go and really give a good account of yourself. As you say, Shane, we're playing the best team in Ireland on their home patch effectively. I don't know what way the weather is going to be, but in many ways we go down with the pressure off as well. And that's a great way to be going down.
Yeah, you have a brilliant book that people can. This is an obvious stocking filler heading into Christmas, but after the storm, the GA COVID and the power of people. Can you talk to us about that, Damien? The process of making it, putting it together, and some of the highlights during that period.
Well, look, thanks a million for bringing it up. After the storm could be described last Sunday in Clough and in Killer One and our cronies, so I might have to rename that. Look, lads, I'll be honest with you. If I saw a book with COVID on it, would I look twice at it? I'd probably get a pain in my hole looking at it, to be honest with you. And I tried to write this book the complete opposite of that. It's all positive, kind of feel-good, comeback, resilient stories told through people. how we all got through the pandemic and how we helped each other. And again, like days like last Sunday, just remind you what you actually missed for the 2 years in terms of, like, Kildangan won their county final, and I don't know what restrictions were there officially at the time, so it wouldn't have been as generous as they were last Sunday, for example. But I think what it did, Shane, went around to a lot of people who had stories to tell. Like one girl, Marianne Walsh, had been diagnosed with cancer at the start of COVID. She was a nurse in Waterford Regional Hospital. She would have worked religiously whilst getting chemo, trying to keep ticking over with her hurling as well. She wanted to win the Camogie Championship with Moonkind. And 5-6 months after being diagnosed, she got Kilkenny Player of the Year and won that championship. There was a guy, chairman of Clough Out from up in Belfast, a barrister. He was in a coma on a ventilator for 16 days fighting for his life. And he had kept his own club, Naevena, going, and he got out of that coma, and now he's trying to help the nurses get better equality and better conditions. And the stories like that, how the New York people in the GAA over there helped the undocumented Irish keep going. How Lockmore Castellini managed to have 2 crazy COVID years the way they did, losing 2 county finals but bouncing back to win both. How the Tip footballers all of a sudden had their best players back in the county when nobody was expecting that to happen, and went on to win a Munster title. But it's really personal stories, and peppered in between them is kind of the stuff about the government allowing us back and what the GAA implemented, and the stuff about the training breaches and the lockdowns. But it's not really about COVID at all. It's about the resilience that people showed. And look, and hopefully it goes well. I wrote it because I've been covering it as a news reporter for 2 years, but I wasn't always able to tell the personal story. It was nearly all factual news. And I just had too many of them catalogued, and I said I have to do something with this. So it's out there now anyway. So there's 10 weeks up to Christmas, and hopefully it'll go okay.
Yeah, well, it's an absolutely brilliant read, so people can go out looking for that after the storm from Damien Lawler. Damien, brilliant of you to join us. Really appreciate it and enjoy. If there's any more celebrations, make sure you're in the thick of it.
No, I'm Kilrowan's only available player for selection today. So look, well done to Lorrha too, Shane Brophy, and I'll talk to you soon, lads, all right?
Okay, so that was Damien Lawler there. After the game, you were talking to Jerome Cahill. Number one, before we get on to whether he might appear in blue and gold again, what was the buzz like with Jerome? Watching him lift the cup anyway, he was obviously delighted.
Yeah, like, in fairness, Damien said it there when he said about his speech back in Cloughjordan. Like, he's just such an impressive person. Like, everything he says is so well measured, is so thought out, and I think he's brutally honest. Like, and I suppose that's one thing you would get with Jerome. Like, he knows what he wants, he knows what he's about. He thinks the game. He's just such an intelligent player, intelligent person. Like, he's so driven. Like, and like, it's like, for what he's 22, 23 years of age. Like, to be a captain of your club team at that age, you have to have something special about you. Because, like, you'd always think you maybe go for some of the older guys, maybe to set the tone, like, and bit experience of being there, done that. No, they put their trust in him, and he delivered. Like, he probably had a quieter game on Sunday compared to the drawn game, but look, he still popped up at key moments. I suppose none more so than for the first goal when he cut through the middle. He read Cian O'Kelly's pass. He was gone, like, and led up for the goal. But no, really, really impressive personality. Like, so.
Paul Tierney says plenty of talk of Jake Morris and his possible inclusion. I'm wondering, do you actually mean Jerome Cahill there in the Tip squad? And rightly so. I'm interested to see whether Niall O'Mara is deployed at the back for Tip. So he's so good also. I mean, I don't know if Niall has given any indication of whether he'll be back in blue and gold next year, but certainly, so he's been a huge player for Tipperary on some big days. So it would be brilliant to have him back. I think he's only 29, isn't
he? I think he could be gone over to 30. I think he's 30, 31.
He's 29 if Wikipedia is to be believed. He's 29.
Yeah, no, he's saying if he is, he's probably, he's not too far away from it. Like, so. Yeah.
But I mean, I'm sure you'd like to see him back available, especially considering there's a few players that won't be available next year.
Oh, that definitely. Look, sure, we're down a lot of bodies then for next year for Tip. It definitely feels like while there will probably be an infusion of youth. You still need guys that have been there, done that, and look, there's no better leader than Niall O'Mara. I'm sure he's definitely one that Liam Cahill would definitely want to have back in the setup. It's like, I suppose he can play in a range of positions from half back to half forward, like, and I'd say we're probably a team that not overly blessed with, but not won't be in terms of experience next year. You have no Craig Morgan, you have no Barry Heffernan. There's supposed to be touch and go whether John McGrath will be back in time as long as his recovery goes well. Like, so, and I think Brian Hogan is going travelling, so we'll probably have another goalkeeper as well to maybe blood in with Barry Hogan. Like, so, it's just we definitely wouldn't want to say no to him anyway.
No, definitely not. And then Jerome Cahill, did you get a sense that he'd be interested in coming back, or?
I asked. I was talking to him afterwards, and I did, for the paper. I suppose I had to ask him the question, and I'd say, if I percentage-wise, I'd say it's 80-20 maybe against him coming back to the squad. Like, I suppose the quote, I suppose, as he gave it to me, I suppose he said, I've been there before. I know the commitment and dedication that is involved. Also, I know the reward and privilege it is to put on the blue and gold jersey. But having said that, I feel I have a good balance in my life at the moment, which I wouldn't get if I was training 5 nights a week. I want to maintain that. I'm sure Liam Cahill and the boys will, anything to do will be for the betterment of Tipperary. We'll see what comes down the line. So, look, he hasn't said not, but I suppose reading that, I suppose what you were making of it suggests to me that I'd say, somewhere maybe 80-20 against, like, he with some serious bit of arm twisting maybe to get him in there.
Yeah, that's a tough one to take, those quotes. I'd have really been kind of hanging my hat on him being available next year to put the Tip supporters hat on, which some people say I never really take off. But yeah, he'd be a big loss. Okay, let's move on to Lorrha. A glorious day for Lorrha and Dara beating Moneygall. Just talk to me, what was it like being on the sideline as Moneygall made a bit of a comeback, found the net, had a couple of goal chances that were knocked away. What was it like for you on the sideline? For people who don't know, you're part of the backroom team with Ken Hogan.
It was nice to talk honestly about it now. It was nervous. Like, even after the great start, like 2 goals in the first 3 minutes, like, just like you think that was the start Moneygall needed as the underdog, but we got it. But even after that, we were never fully comfortable. Like, even though we were always maybe 5, 6, 7 ahead, Moneygall were always a threat. And look, it just shows you, like, Kevin Hawke had a big game in goals for us, pulled off a couple of brilliant saves, like, at crucial stages, particularly the one from Sean Kennelly midway through the second half. I think if they got it back to 4, maybe 3 or 4 points at that stage, like, we would never fully had the game under control. But, like, I suppose the goals from Chris Fogarty's hat-trick and Bonner Maher at the end really put the game to bed. We had chances, like Brian Hogan probably missed frees that he hadn't missed all year, particularly midway through early in the second half. Or if we were able to put those away, we would have maybe killed off the Moneygall challenge a little bit earlier. But no, look at it from my point of view, it was sheer relief at the final whistle. Like, I don't know if you saw it, there was nearly no outpouring of joy at the final whistle, even though there was. I wouldn't say there was pressure within the group to win the championship. There's nearly come from outside that people think, God, Lorrha, they're back at full strength. They should be winning the interregional championship. And, like, from my point of view and my job, and you're hearing that from everybody, you're just saying, you're just hoping just to get through the championship and win it out. And, like, no, that's no disrespect to all the opponents, but it was, like, when you're constantly hearing it, and, like, you just knew one bad performance, one defeat, particularly in the knockout stages, and that was it. And look, we nearly came a cropper against Borris again in the quarter final, and then, like, how do you go trying to pick that group up again for next year to try and win it again next year? So, look, in fairness to them, they got through it, and look, they played well on Sunday. I don't think it was as well as we played in other matches, but look, it was all about winning, and we got there for a finish.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Dolan kind of referred to, a bit of talk outside the group, considering how things had gone from being in the Seamus O'Reen final a couple of years ago to being relegated. So, but
like, let's not make no mistake about, like, it was slightly embarrassing to go from Seamus O'Reen finalists to being relegated, and, like, that's taking the injury situation last year into account, which was a lot of the the issue, like where we found ourselves in. And look, I know from talking to one of the selectors from last year's management team and hearing from through Ken about John McIntyre, like that management team took it very hard that they were the management team that got Lorrha relegated, and said there was no greater relieved people to see Lorrha jump straight back up, like, and look, it was. I'm as delighted for them as I am for the group of players. It was like I know John McIntyre, Eamon Maher, Martin Young, James O'Mara, like the management team last year, like they did everything possible, like to win, and like it was no slight on them that the team went down. It was just a rotten run of injuries last year. I think it was in the relegation semi-final last year. I think we were down 7 first-choice players. Like we're a smaller rural club. Like we're pulling from 41 players. Like, and if you're down Bonner Maher, you're down Owen McIntyre, you're down some key guys. Like it's very, very hard to win games. You need your good players on the field, and like for a lot of this year's campaign, we did. And like that, on top of like we lost Kieran Hawke to a season-ending injury before the North final. Like he would have started that game last weekend if he was fit. Kevin Maher, former Tip minor and under 21, he's struggling with a back problem. He didn't play all year. So like we weren't without our own injury problems this year, but then it opened up chances for like the Derek Inan. He had a brilliant match last Sunday, ring back. Dennis O'Mara, cornerback, was superb, like on Sean Kennelly. Like he really got physical with him. Like Kennelly scored some great points in the game, and it got a goal late on, but maybe managed to tie him down very well. And look, just the way things happen. Like Chris Fogarty came off at half-time against Drummond Inch with a hamstring injury. Like there was a chance all week he wouldn't play in the match, and geez, he ends up scoring a hat-trick. Like it's just gas the way things work out.
And he still didn't get man of the match. Niall McIntyre, he got it. So I'd say there was a bit of ribbon going on about that.
Yeah, it's just we were expecting Chris or maybe Kevin Hawke for the goal, the saves he made, but I know Niall had a serious match. He took some punishment. Like there was some of our lads were sore now on Monday. There was a couple of heavy challenges on the end. Like Bonner Maher got a serious one middle of the second half. I thought for a period there he wasn't going to be able to come back on. He was a bit woozy on the feet, but God, he had a brilliant game for us as well. Like just his leadership and his class and his quality, he's a player every club would just love to have. He's just so selfless, and look, he sacrificed a lot last Sunday. You think like he was training all through the autumn to run the Dublin Marathon, and then suddenly the county final is thrown in on it, and like people think there's no decision to be made. You play in a county final, but like when you're an individual and okay, you're training with Lorrha and you're trying to win with them, but then on the side you're training for an individual event and you're building yourself up for, then suddenly 6 days beforehand you have to pull out of it. Like it's like I'm sure it was a bit of a disappointment for him, but look, he put that to one side, and like he had a serious game for his last weekend, as he had for all year.
You'll probably be glad to hear that throughout the game, obviously there's an awful lot of journalists in the press box that would know you fairly well. Anytime Lorrha did anything well at all, I just spoke about how this was a Brophy masterclass again.
No, we'll leave that to the boss. Like in fairness to Ken, like, and like his fairness, his managerial record is crazy now at this stage. You think Borris, Coolderry, St. Ryan's, like Borris Kilcotton, like he's and now with ourselves, like serious. And I think I'm not sure whether he did this, whether he had a spell in Portumna or I'm not sure whether he maybe a coaching role or something, but like anywhere he goes, like he's just, and like that was pressure for him coming back last year to take on the team after we're relegated, because unless Lorrha won the championship, went straight back up, the year would have been a failure. Like, and look, it was done. Like, and look, just we didn't overcomplicate it. It was just get the guys fit, get them motivated, get them united, and which they were. I'm not sure. It's great. Like we're back in the second tier next year, and hopefully, I'd like to think if we get able to keep our best team in the field, maybe add a couple of young pieces to it, that we'd be very competitive. If not, maybe get back towards the knockout stages again.
Yeah, so referee John O'Grady, it is his style to let the game go, and he certainly did let it go. But I did feel in the first half, there was a few times where I thought there was frees for Moneygall. They weren't given, and Lorrha went up the other way and scored straight away. And then I was thinking, when you combine that with the couple of goal chances that Moneygall had in the second half, it could have been even tighter again. Do you think did you see it that way in terms of you got away with one or two in the first half?
I was looking back on it, and I was looking at a few incidents, and I would have said, okay, yeah, we got the rub of the green there. But then I would have looked at the first Moneygall goal and looked at Owen McIntyre was taken out with a frontal charge in the half-forward line before the ball went up the field. And, okay, Daniel Donoghue had a bit of a handling error, and it led to the goal. Look, you get those things. You'll always be looking at, there'll always be decisions you hope go for you and against you. Like, there's no doubt, looking at a few instances that Moneygall were probably entitled to a couple of more frees, but look, I think overall I thought we were the more economical team. I thought Moneygall had chances even after the bad start. They had chances for points that went narrowly wide early in the second half. They had a couple of goal chances. Look, great credit to Kevin Hock. He stood tall and he did his job, and this was great for Kevin. He was on the team that won the intermediate 15 years ago, and he sort of coming into this year's championship, he was only more or less going to be the sub goalie. Then Paddy Redden, who he got injured against Moneygall in the North semi-final. Kevin stepped in for the North final and the first round of the championship against Carrick-Davins, and look, he did nothing wrong and he kept his place and he kept it all year. And I suppose something we better rectify for the reboot. Paddy did come on last Sunday as an outfield player. He wore Conor Milan's jersey, so he was in a lot of match reports over the last few days as Conor Milan. So we're a bit of Paddy's due that Paddy did come on as an outfield substitute towards the end, and he got his run in the field, and he was getting a bit of a ribbon there last night. He got a chance for a point there late on, and he gave off a pass. We were kind of hoping he'd have the outshot. He would. I think the roof would have come off the stadium if he'd had the shot and had gone over, because he'd always been a renowned goalie, but in fairness, he was a couple of games this year where he came in out the field. We were trying to hold two adult teams at one stage, and we want to try and break up the junior team, and Paddy stepped in outfield and did a job for us against Borris, and it's a delight for him as well.
And what was it like back in Pat Hawks afterwards that evening? I know you had a lot of work to do with the Nina Guardian, so you couldn't really go hard on it.
No, sure, I was in bed at 10:30 Sunday night, as I knew what was coming Monday morning. There's no bank holidays in this job. When you're the 4 o'clock deadline on a Tuesday afternoon doesn't change because of bank holiday in local journalism. So I know it was great. Look, there was a great sense of satisfaction, and I think a little. I keep using the word relief because I think there's a lot of that in it too. Because if when you have everybody telling you that Lorrha is the best team in it, that's great. But if you don't win it, it doesn't mean a damn thing. So maybe we'll actually be able, when we're back up Premier Intermediate next year, the lads can hold maybe a small bit more relaxed, and where maybe their expectation levels are not as great. And I know it was great, and I suppose particularly last night, I was able to go back down there last night, and I suppose when you know yourself, maybe with Coola, maybe it's the second or third night, whereas all that's left after the celebrations is just the players and the management, and it's you can maybe chat about the game, have that maybe that emotional maybe high is gone, you're able to, it's a great sense of satisfaction a night or two after.
No doubt. My own Borris Lee then beat Shannon Rovers in the intermediate camogie final. And of course, I was down in Borris over the weekend. I didn't quite get down in time for the game, but there was fair celebrations going on in Borris Lee that night out the back of Finn's. And the next day as well, I saw plenty of them in Joe's. But Borris Lee were miles behind in this game and had to do a serious comeback. And Aidan Hogan would have been a huge part of that, scoring 1-5. For Ryan 1-2, Noreen Stapleton with a goal. Borris are back up senior, but geez, they definitely did it the hard way.
Yeah, no, it was a 1-4 to no score or something after a couple of minutes. They got off to a terrible start, and you said this is a Shannon Rover side who are not going to be denied in their third final in a row. But fairness to Borris Lee, I think they got it back to a point at half time, and they had elements to come, and you sense yourself that they were on the way. And it took them a while in the second half to shake off Shannon Rovers, but they finally did it. And I suppose it's great for them. And I suppose maybe looking on at the success that the men's team had a few years ago, like it looks like it probably galvanised the Camogie club to get together. But it's like you think there was 2016 they were in a senior final, like that's not long ago, and they fell all the way back to intermediate, and now like to get themselves back up to senior, and I suppose from their point of view they'll want to stay there, and like they have a young enough team, like, so there's no reason to think that there probably is a gap between them and maybe Drum and Inch at this stage, but like maybe over the next couple of years start to slowly bridge that gap.
Yeah, and all the talk at home over the weekend is it is a very young team, and maybe they can go further and hopefully go further in the club campaign this year as well. I suppose the thing we should finish off on, unless there's something else you want to bring up, is your own thoughts and my thoughts then on Ballygunner against Killerwan McDonough's. I do think it's a huge ask, especially when you would imagine that Ballygunner, everyone's been properly rested. They've been able to probably do a block of training, play all their challenge matches, give everyone game time. They have a seriously deep panel, whereas Killerwan, mostly the management tends to use the same 16 or 17 players. They've obviously got other players on the panel that I'm sure have qualities too. But even some of those players that will be starting, they're the walking wounded as well. It's on a tough, a big enough pitch. If the day is, maybe a dirty day might suit Killerwan in this situation. I'm not entirely sure, but it really is heavily stacked against them here.
There's no doubt about it, but there's one thing Killerwan have, and that's pride. And like you think the last time they won the county championship in '85, they went on and won the All Ireland, and like it keeps being brought up, and it was referenced again after the match last Sunday that when they were in Munster in '85, they played a star-studded Blackrock team in a Munster semi-final, and they drew with them the first day, and they said that's our chance gone. They went out and beat them by 6 points in the semi-final in the replay. Like, so, like they'll you can be sure some of those veteran fathers and uncles and old timers will be saying, look lads, you're Killerwan, put your chest out and go down there and do yourselves proud. And like, okay, Ballygunner are rested, and you go back to last year when they similarly had a big break. They went up to Ennis and they devoured Ballyer in the Munster quarter final. So look, they won't be rusty; they'll be ready. But do you know what? There's this element of me saying that Killerwan will go into the same Lockmore playbook last year. Like outside of Shamrocks and Ballyhale in the All Ireland, Lockmore gave Ballygunner their toughest game. And what did they do? They got in their faces. They got physical with them. They got tight. They turned the game ugly. And that's one thing Killerwan can do to you. They will. Killerwan play a very direct brand of hurling. I'd say Ballygunner don't play an awful lot of teams that do that just drive the ball down on top of the full forward line. It'll probably maybe take them 15-20 minutes maybe to get up to speed on that. But that being said, do Killerwan have a defender to tie down Desi Hutchinson? I don't think they do. They'd have somebody to tie down Patrick Fitzgerald. I don't think they do. But I think Killerwan will go down there and they'll make it very, very hard for Ballygunner. Could they produce an inspired performance where Keane Darcy scores 3-3 from playing, Jerome Cahill throws in another couple of goals and they win 5-10 to 120? Could happen. I don't think it will. Look, we have to give a shout out. Look, Ross Gray are in a Munster semi-quarter final against Ballysaggart on Sunday, and Drum and Inch and Borris in a Munster semi-finals this weekend as well in Camogie. I think Drum are getting up against De La Salle, and I think the Borris are down in Ahabalog in Cork. So like, you think there's a lot of Tipperary Waterford matchups this weekend in Camogie and hurling, and sure, please God, will come out on the right side of some of them and move on into the semi-finals.
Yeah, absolutely. I second that. Great stuff, Shane. We'll be back again next week reviewing all of that. And don't forget to pick up a copy of the Nina Guardian. Thanks very much.